So I've done several videos talking about how Kamala Harris has raised $1 billion since entering the race July 21st. And that's a staggering amount of money to raise in that amount of time. But the mainstream media wants you to believe that it's not having an effect. I'm seeing articles saying how the $1 billion that she's raised isn't affecting the swing states, how it's not it's not helping her in the polls, how Donald Trump is beating the polling averages, all this stuff. Well, they want you to believe the polls, and they want you to be right. Well, guess what? The polls have been wrong. They've been wrong before. They're going to be wrong again, and I think it's going to be by a wide margin. Why? Well, Donald Trump hasn't appealed to any new voters. He is hanging his hat on one topic for the election, basically immigration. That is the only thing he is campaigning on, and the only reason he's even able to campaign on immigration is because he killed that bipartisan border bill. He told him not to vote for it because he wanted to run on immigration. Because immigration was such a problem, we got to fix it, but we can't fix it until January when he's president again. It should have been fixed when they had the bipartisan border bill presented, but Republicans refused to vote for it. Anyway, Donald Trump, with these polls, everyone's saying, oh, he's doing so good, he's doing so good. Well, you don't trust polls. You trust the fundraising. If you look at fundraising where people are digging into their pocket and giving her hard-earned cash through all of these different organizations, the different Zoom calls that have been held where they've raised millions of dollars to help her campaign, that translates into efforts in the ground game where she can have field offices. People, they can get volunteers to go help with door knocking and do all sorts of things that Donald Trump is just not doing. That does translate into votes. That helps with ads, all of it. And the polls, you don't know who's doing the poll. You might know the company, but you don't know who they're contacting. They're not always clear about that. I remember one poll I looked at a couple of years ago. They were just calling people with landlines that were subscribing to a particular newspaper. Well, most people don't read a newspaper anymore. They get their news online. And who still has a landline phone? Not many people. So how reliable is that poll? I would say not very. And most of the polls are still showing that Kamala Harris it's at least tied. So to say that her fundraising isn't having an effect is blatantly flawed. But they're just looking for any sort of story. They want to keep this a dogfight. They're going to lean their stories coming up to the election slightly in the favor of Kamala Harris, make it sound like she might win. Oh, she's going to pull it out. It's not going to be close. I don't see how in any way it can be close. Donald Trump is not appealing to voters. He's hanging his entire re-election on immigration. And he's not fundraising. He's not out campaigning in swing states. And when he does campaign, when he does hold events, he sounds unhinged and weird and very seriously mentally impaired, like he did yesterday in Detroit, like I'm sure he will later today. None of it makes sense as to why the media is doing this, other than they want you to keep tuning in and keep reading it. Don't believe the polls. Don't believe the mainstream media when they tell you it's going to be close. That being said, we need to get out and vote like we are 10 points down, because we can't get complacent and assume she's just going to win and, well, we don't need to help her. We need to vote for her and vote blue down the ballot in almost all races to make sure she has a favorable Congress to help her get everything she needs done in her first term as president.